Hey, what's going on? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is King Wabi the First, and I am bringing you a new episode of Crypto World Radio. I'm here joined by our panel, Naka, Cody, as usual, Payne, and also Vestige. Today, we're going to talk about the future of BTC and its utility. We're going to talk everything from regulations, we're going to talk exchanges, we're going to talk protocol updates, we're going to talk DeFi on BTC. We're going to talk about some AI on BTC. We're going to talk about future halvening cycles, everything in regards to BTC. We're going to talk about miners. This is going to be the first of many Bitcoin exclusive spaces hosted here by my favorite sponsor, Because Bitcoin. And it's good to be here with you guys. If you're listening to us from YouTube, please be sure to like, comment with some feedback, click that subscribe button, and turn on those bell notifications so that every day around the clock you can receive updates from our stream of content. In the morning, we have breakfast news with our boy Premise and our boy Snorlax. And then we have our lunchtime show, which is at 12 p.m. Eastern time, with our CEO Max, our boy Bando, and the guys from the Breakfast Channel. I mean, the breakfast content. And then in the afternoon, we have our Pride and Joy, Brandon straight down Ukraine, Carter, the 6'2", blue-eyed, 220-pound heartthrob with a six-pack that drips so much that BTC just wants to go straight down. But anyways, and then you have myself feeding you all the cringe and all the froth in the market at 7 p.m. Eastern time, sometimes 8, sometimes 9, sometimes a bit earlier. It varies. It's a bear market. We have to be flexible. Please don't burn me at the stake. But hopefully, we can provide you guys uh, with some value in the content that we're pushing out. And all right, let's get the show on the road. We'll start off with Naka. Naka, how are you today, my man?
Yeah, pretty good. I mean, we have a little bit of bearish action at the moment, a little bit of Binance FUD. Um, we also have what's going on in the legacy markets. They've just been dumped pretty hard by Jerome Powell. So yeah, I mean, probably pretty bearish, but it's always possible that we get a little pullback now. Because obviously when you're in a bearish trade and everyone's bearish, it can punish the late bears. So let's see how that goes. But yeah, pretty good.
For sure, man. So are you in the camp that maybe we're following an extended version of the 2014, 2015 bear market where it's kind of like a slow bleed until that final candle? Because it really seems like, you know, usually it's usually it's the third leg in a bear market that creates that bottom, and it's typically led by an event like with the Mount Gox guys, and I believe it was also the Bitfinex situation where users had to wait a while to become whole. Are you in the camp that we bottom via a narrative, like someone goes to jail or the last exchange goes down, or are you more looking towards price?
I think we're going to get dragged around by traditional markets. So basically, we've had a bunch of bearish news on traditional markets. There have been like a bunch of new layoffs. Jay Powell is bearish. People are updating their probabilities of a recession from maybe to almost certainly. So all of this bearish TradFi stuff, it's just going to nuke us, right? There's no way that crypto is going to do well. We're not going to decouple to the upside, right? So how long is the TradFi recession going to take to play out? It's hard to say, but I feel like it's another 6 months at least. So I think we've got some more downside just because of that. And then, whilst there's downside, whilst the money is being pulled out, it's kind of like if you have a bunch of people who go skinny dipping, Some of them are actually naked. The tide goes out. You get to see who's swimming naked, right? It's a bit of a Ben Cohen quote, but
Yeah.
I think basically what's happening, right? Like all the money's being withdrawn. Barry Silbert has just basically market sold every single fucking coin he has, and created, like 15-minute candles that wipe out, billions and billions of dollars in market cap from Zcash, Filecoin. What was the other scam that he was running? The other privacy coin? I can't even remember. But just all of Barry Silbert's scams all just got sold. And that indicates to me that Digital Currency Group is in trouble. And if Digital Currency Group is in trouble, guess what they might do? They might market sell their GBTC and ETH coins. And that's 600,000 Bitcoins and 3 million ETH that they might have to sell. Now, maybe they won't, but they can't do it now because it's the weekend, right? So they've just market sold all of their crypto, basically. And now they have this, these trusts. What's going to happen to those trusts on Monday morning? Who knows? So I think basically there's just going to be more pain. Expect the first half of 2023 to be 6 months of pain, more downside. I can see Bitcoin going to 10K by June next year.
Okay, that's fine, man. We all have our reasons. One thing to take notice of is that the Fed funds rate has essentially been going vertical this year, and it's looking like it wants to test like that just over 5%, which is around where we were in 2008 before the Fed pivoted. So I'm definitely in that camp. I just think that like the pain might come in a COVID kind of crash where essentially like time wise we're closer to the bottom, but price wise not so much. But I definitely agree with you that like this is essentially probably the last domino to fall, and it's definitely something to look out for. So we'll move on, and then we'll just have a broader discussion like we always do. Cody, what's going on, my man? Are you ready to talk some doom, bro? Where are we going, dude?
Well, I
$1,500,
promised
brother.
all counterparties I wouldn't spread bear porn.
Go ahead,
But
man. It's all
It's a bear porn space today.
for me, dude.
Fucking her on, bro.
It's Max Kaiser, dude. It's Max Kaiser in here.
Nah, dude.
Instead of
Last weekend, I lost my voice, man, doing that.
dude,
So,
dude, instead of ripping US dollar bills, we're gonna be grabbing our ledgers and smashing them on the ground and throwing them across ponds. And like our boy Ben Cowan says, not gonna describe them. Shout out to Into the Cryptoverse, definitely a knowledgeable person to follow in these markets. We're gonna be inside Ben's sandbox in the woods, and we're not gonna have our
what?
what is it? What is it, Naka? We're not going to put our bull market hats on, and schedule our Forbes interview. Is that how he says it, Naka?
I think he will say we're not out of the woods yet. Don't schedule your Forbes interview just yet, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, the thing is, we like crypto. I feel is ready to bottom, but if TradFi is new king, it's just not going to happen, right? It's just going to get dragged down.
Understandable. Cody, go ahead, brother. Go ahead, man. Excuse.
Yeah, I mean, dude, to look for the bottom, man, you just want to, look for money flow and whatnot, sustainable money flow. All these people to be ejected out of the market and stuff, But it's the same thing. It's been the same thing for many, many moons now. So, I mean, I don't have much to say. I don't think it's going up anytime soon, but that's just where I'm at.
I mean, another thing to look for bottoming is you can look at the stablecoin supply, right? So, the stable coins basically topped in April of this year, April 22, at 180 billion, and they're just on a downtrend, right? Stable coins are being destroyed, which means people are redeeming stables and pulling out fiat, and as long as that's happening, like the risk assets will keep going down.
Yeah, it's never one same signal. You got to have a whole tool belt of signals to really tell you that you're in the conditions of risk on, right? And so there's just a bunch of stuff, and another thing is like, I think your gut tells you when it's the bottom. Honestly, it will tell you when it's the bottom. You just have to really stay away from surrounding yourself in an echo bubble or whatever it's called, echo chamber, right? GCR has got me mixed up, man.
Speaking of GCR, I want to mention GCR and also the stablecoin supply ratio. So with GCR, I want to make one thing clear. All right, if someone is looking at this podcast 2 years, 3 years, 4 years from now, and BTC is at 80, 90K, I want to make it known. Okay, in 2021, people were so bullish that they thought the latest metaverse token to get listed on KuCoin, right, was going to flip Solana, was going to flip Chainlink, right? And GCR was pretty much telling everyone to flip short. But we were out here flipping NFTs, and I was bridging to AVAX and Phantom and going from Terra to Ethereum, using Aave, using Anchor, leveraging my tits to the absolute gills, right? And GCR was extremely bearish. And now you have the inverse of that, where people are now more bearish than GCR was last year. And he's starting to become bullish, not so much as price, but on a time scale, meaning that time is more on our side than the dump. And what I mean by that is like whatever price targets we have or we would feel comfortable with, they're a lot closer than people want to acknowledge. And it's always happened this year via something that affects the underlying infrastructure of something. For example, first we had UST that affected Terra, right? And also 3AC. And then we had FTT, which affected the underlying infrastructure of FTX, right? And then, now we have BNB, and whether that affects the lying infrastructure of Binance, it's a complete knock on wood at the moment. But, should we see BNB, head towards like $60, they might be in trouble, given that I believe 70% of their treasury / backstop is held in the BNB token, and I'm not sure what sort of credit line they have. So that's one thing that I do want to mention. But when it refers to stablecoin supply, I want to throw out something bullish, right? Not for the current environment, but for the next froth. If you see the stablecoin supply market cap at over $1 trillion, like maybe 1.5, maybe close to 2 trillion, perhaps, but more along the lines of maybe 1 trillion, then you need to sell. You need to sell. I think that is a good benchmark for the next top. And I'm going to say it again. If the stablecoin market cap reaches over 1 trillion US dollars, you need to sell. Get out. There is no one last pump. That is it. And if you want to give a good comparison to the last time that I referred to something reaching a certain market cap, I remember back in early 2019 where I had said that, all right, once Bitcoin reaches an evaluation of over 1 trillion, it might not be the exact top, but relative to where you are right now, it probably is going to be the top. The current market cap right now is at about $800 billion. So what I'm telling you now to the listener, right, whether you're here on the space or whether you're listening to the replay on YouTube tomorrow, next week, next year, or 4 years from now, right, when you see the stablecoin supply market cap exceed the current market cap right now in this bear market, it's probably the top. Because usually with stablecoins, you can multiply it to a certain degree, given that stablecoins are essentially used as leverage to purchase derivative products such as altcoins.
Well,
right?
It's not just the derivatives, Bobby. It's also like if you have a coin with a market cap of X, right? It doesn't take X actual dollars to make the market cap go up, right? It's more like 0.2 of X, right? 0.1. So you have some fucking illiquid shit coin with 90% of the supply still locked up, that last 10% is the only 10% that's actually being bought or sold. So the dollars get multiplied out, and it's and the ratio of the actual market caps to the stable coins, that's the stable coin supply ratio that I track.
So essentially, like I guess a better way to explain it would be like if I have like 10,000 USDC, right? And I purchase, something like Rune, right? And let's say Rune gets to like, $100 million in market cap, then, that $10,000 does not actually equate to $10,000 added to the market cap. As a matter of fact, like it's actually a bit stronger than $10,000 that gets added. Given like what if I put that in derivatives? What if I market buy? Because I find it so odd that like the total stablecoin market cap peaked out in the spring of this year and not last year. So it kind of gives me the sense that like some of these stablecoins are essentially adding to the leverage in the system, where it's like, yeah, it's $10,000 USDC, but the buying power, at least on these exchanges where the price gets pushed up more than it should, it's essentially like, yeah, it's 10,000, but you added an extra 20%. Given that a lot of these altcoins, a lot of their volume does come from derivatives, so that's just something that I've come up with, maybe like my own speculation or something. But we'll touch on that later. We'll finish the round table, and then like we'll move on to the brief discussion about BTC. I know we sometimes get a little bit carried away on these spaces. So, Payne, how are you today, my man?
I'm doing great, man. How about yourself?
And I'm chilling, bro. We finally have a BTC exclusive space. So, for the listeners that think that I'm just going to be the altcoin guy, the froth guy, the one giving the soy jack face on the YouTube thumbnail, you're sadly mistaken, dude. I'm going to have this frog on the rocket is going to have laser eyes eventually, dude. Everyone do the soy jack face, dude. Everyone do the soy jack face. I love it. I love that thing, dude. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Another thing a couple of people have mentioned in previous spaces and stuff, but I think we definitely need to see minor capitulation as well. I think that'll probably be I think that's one of the biggest signals, if not the biggest, outside of equities. That's probably the biggest crypto specific signal that you can look for. Because I think that's just a really easy buying opportunity. Because anytime there's forced selling, I mean, there's just like the risk to reward of not buying that is pretty strongly in your favor. So yeah, man, that's probably the biggest thing I'm looking for. Nick, I gotta give a shout out to Nicholas because he's one of the people that's made me think about that a lot and very cognizant.
We still haven't seen
Prestige, how are you, my man?
I'm good. I'm good. We still haven't even seen the capitulation. People aren't ready for it yet. People are still living in like dream world, like hopium happiness land, thinking that everything's okay, and they're just not being realists, and they're in for rude awakening and a reality check. Everyone who thinks we're going to happier places and everything's going to be great, and the new year is going to be so prosperous and great, and the war in Ukraine is going to end, and inflation's going to go down, and fucking we're going to go to 100K Bitcoin, and Solana's going to go back to 500. Yeah. Yeah.
Bears are not bearish enough. Tell them, new bro.
I mean,
man, guys, you got to remember too. Genesis still owes Gemini $1 billion. Withdrawals are still frozen.
Yeah,
exactly. And Silvergate.
Yeah, and also like someone pissed off.
And Binance, bro. Binance looks like it's gonna go for punk.
Yeah, man. True, dude. Do you have any good news to tell us, bro? I'm already starting to see the clouds turn gray. Tell us something.
I don't buy the Binance FUD, man. I think that there's other weaker players that are. I see a lot of people circulating this Binance stuff. I'm not saying that they're completely solvent, but I think it's been hyped up. It's like Crypto.com and KuCoin to me seem like they're more vulnerable than Binance.
KuCoin's a roach, dude. I don't think.
Yeah, bro, I've been
Yeah,
saying that.
KuCoin's not going anywhere.
KuCoin and Bybit are cockroaches, bro. I don't think you can kill Bybit and KuCoin.
Why do you think those guys are more vulnerable right now? Because if everyone's fudding Binance, here's the thing with FUD, right? Like, it's even if the FUD is kind of like artificial to start with, it's sort of like it's like the police stopping you, right? If you have like a broken tail light and the police stop you and they thoroughly search your car and maybe they'll actually find something, right? Like the very fact that people are really seriously fudding it right now is a reason that it actually might break. And it doesn't have to be full insolvency, but if you look at the BNB price, and I'm short BNB, I might have shorted the bottom. But if you look at the BNB price, it's come back to support, and this is a support that it's like touched 6 times already, right? So there's this support at about 230. We had touches in 2021, another touch in May of this year. Then it kind of briefly broke in July. So like this support's been touched many, many times. Usually when a support gets touched too much, it becomes weaker and weaker with every touch. Everyone who wants to buy there has bought and it breaks. And this is exactly what we've seen in other places. So, I mean, I don't think it's a dead set.
Let me explain my thesis around that, Naka. So the reason that I say that, especially about crypto.com, is if you rewind back to when Luna was popping, a lot of these companies that went insolvent were involved with Luna. And so crypto.com was paying out ridiculous APRs. And I don't have the evidence, but I suspect that they were using customer funds in depositing them in the Anchor protocol and then giving, 80% of the yield to the customers and collecting, the difference. So I suspect that, it's possible that they were pulling some kind of FTX style stuff. The reason I don't suspect Binance is because people are making this analogy to FTX, but the thing that fucked FTX was that they took people's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other assets and sold them and then kept FTT on their balance sheet as collateral, which then I get what you're saying about BNB, but look, it doesn't matter if BNB takes a shit as long as Binance didn't liquidate customers' assets, right? As long as they're holding, if you have BTC and ETH, as long as they didn't take your solid assets and swap them for shit coins, the fluctuation in the price of the BNB has less of an impact on whether you can withdraw your funds.
I mean, in order to make money, all I need is for BNB to take a big shit. I mean, I don't actually care whether Binance is solvent.
Perfect, man.
As long as BNB dumps, I'm going to make money.
Perfect, man. Naka nailed it on the head right there. I think that about solves it right there. I think we can all agree that we should all buckle up and bow up in these markets, man. Especially in this situation. If CZ wakes up, has the wrong set of pancakes and pisses the wrong guy off, then we're in for some joy. In my opinion, dude, the lower the price, the higher the euphoria levels for those of us that have been in cash over the last few months get, to be honest. I think that's something that we should all be aware of. Not everybody is in these markets trying to leverage trade in a very illiquid and low volume market. I think these.
Yeah, no,
I think hold on.
I'm more concerned with.
Hold on. Give me a sec. Because Nick has been here for a while, and I invited him up here specifically, given that we're gonna, talk about BTC and future utility moving forward if certain things happen. So, Nick, I want to welcome you up here, brother. Welcome. I know you're a writer for Because Bitcoin, and welcome. I heard you for a bit speak on Naka's space a couple of days ago. It's wonderful hearing, how much of a proponent you are for BTC, and I like the thesis of BTC is hard money. It's backed by energy, which is the purest form of currency that we have, and I definitely believe that the current evaluation for BTC is fair for all the transactions that it's processed, how large those transactions are, how secure the network is, and how anyone can join in via mining. So welcome, brother. How are you feeling today? Go ahead and introduce yourself to the crowd, man. I don't think we've ever been on the same space before, but good to have you up here, brother.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Wabi. I mean, in all honesty, I can't stay for a while. I came home from the gym and saw your note on Discord, so I thought I'd have to pop in here and see the new space, because I love to go to Market Talk after the market closes, and yeah, need to participate more in your spaces though, man. Especially, I'm sorry I can't really stay long tonight, because I'm not going to be the man you want on the stage when you're talking about alts. I'm just going to shit on them. But yeah, I mean, for the Bitcoin only space, dude, like, there's just, even for people who are into the altcoins, I mean, you just have to really, keep in mind that it's not even like you're talking about apples and oranges. Like, you're talking about like apples and shit. Like, you're talking about something that solves a real world problem that has been persistent in the monetary system for over 100 years, compared to things that operate more like software companies that tote the the buzzword of decentralized, when that's really like not even a question. Especially like something like Ethereum, because I think that's kind of the one where people are like, well, I don't know, like that one's kind of okay. All the other ones are shit. But no, I mean, it's really like a centralized dog shit, to be honest. Especially post merge. I think there's really no going back after that. I mean, you take a look at the percentage of the blocks that are OFAC compliant now, and it's just like, I'm not sure how they reverse from that. And I see Tomer down in the audience there. Tomer wrote one of my favorite pieces of all time, which is called "The Problem with Ethereum." If you want to give that a read, it's probably like a 15-minute, 10-minute read, something like that. That's a great piece of literature. He's also written some of my favorite.
Tomer should jump up here.
Nick, I hate to be that guy, man, but like I understand that some people hate alts and they hate Vitalik, but
Well,
I really don't
let's
want.
keep it pro BTC. Let's keep
Yeah,
it pro BTC,
dude.
Yeah,
Because like
I feel you.
I do want to put stuff out there. I know some of you like know me for being more reserved and all that stuff, but I do have my moments where where I do like to participate in banter. And I'm knowledgeable in BTC and what's going on with BTC as far as its development and miner growth goes, just as much as the frothy alts and all the bridges and things like that. And I love them both. I love them all. I love them all. But I think the
My
one
point, my only
hold
point,
on, Nick.
Bobby.
I'll finish. I'll finish up right here. I'll finish up. I think the biggest thing that we need to take away from all of this is that when it comes to the BTC exclusive crowd, like they should be focused exclusively on the development and growth of Bitcoin and not looking at Ethereum, not looking at AVAX, not looking at Solana. Just focus on your respective party and do your part to grow the network and educate people. I think as individuals, we can contribute more to the society around cyberpunks and techies in that retrospect rather than, say you present Bitcoin and 70% of the time it's all about, oh, Ethereum is this, Ethereum is that. Solana is horrible. Like, speak about Bitcoin, produce content exclusively to Bitcoin, and focus on growing on the network. I understand that there is many developments on the Bitcoin network, such as BitTensor. You have things that want to develop smart contracts on Bitcoin, like Stacks. You have things like the Xenon network, which is currently right now the only blockchain that can kind of give you a hint of what it would be like to have DeFi on BTC. And it's a very underlooked thing. I think for the most part, in the 5 years that I've been here, all I have seen from the BTC exclusive community is Ethereum is this, Ethereum is that. They spend so much time filling up their lungs with such hatred that it contributes nothing. If anything, it deters people from coming into Bitcoin. And that is why the last cycle, you had people going into SHIB, you had people going into Doge, you had people saying, screw it, I'm going to go to Phantom, I'm going to go to AVAX. It should all be about welcoming the individual just as you would speak to a child. If you can't explain it as you would a child and be welcoming, then people are essentially limiting the growth of the very thing that they want to grow. You know what I'm trying to say. So
But
like,
Wabi, I
Yeah,
think
and I think we've
he
talked
was
about this
getting
a
at a
lot in Lobby
a good
spaces, and
point. Like there's a differentiation there that I think
There's
he
a
was trying to make.
difference. You're not talking about the same thing. You can't even put it under the same blanket of asset class. But anyway, guys, I'm really sorry. I have to go. My
it's okay,
girlfriend
dude. Gosh, man, I wanted to talk like
typical
smart
Bitcoin guy,
contracts.
my
man. Typical
Bob
Bitcoin guy, man. Typical.
my
Dude.
All the
you know
Bitcoin people,
Tomer
all the
just came
Bitcoin
up.
people are like fucking trying to sleep in the same sleeping bag that's too small for them.
Uh,
It's like fucking 50
oh,
people trying to sleep in the one sleeping bag that's like
God.
extra
Let's
tight.
let Tomer speak.
Silence. Okay, look, we're all here for the power of friendship, right? Um, okay, we're gonna start this over again, guys. Um, dang, I
Bloody
really
Tomer
holy
definitely knows all about that stuff
capitulation, man.
that you wanted to mention, Wabi.
yeah. Yeah, I brought him up as a speaker. I know he requested. I have no idea who he is, but Mr. Tomer Strolite, welcome to the
Hey,
show. My name is King Wabi. I host
hey,
Crypto World Radio, and I am an enthusiast of the digital asset class. I like BTC. I like Ethereum.
yeah.
I I,
I've been listening. I've been
I'm
listening to you just
definitely
now.
not in the camp. I'm definitely not in the camp of like banter. Like my chain is better than the other. I kind of just want to bring everyone together and see how we can all grow the space as a whole, rather than like chain wars, if that makes sense. So like
I hear you, but I also heard you just moments ago saying. I also heard you just moments ago saying because Bitcoiners were down on other chains, a lot of people bought other chains that you deemed to be garbage.
No. I was speaking in the sense of like the way the approach has been is to essentially bring others down. Say like I'm an AVAX fan. I like AVAX. I like using the chain. I invested in the token, this and the other, and usually with these spaces, if I'm speaking about my enthusiasm, there would be moments where an individual who I have no idea where they came from, I don't know them from Adam, and they'll start attacking your character. And the reputation that has been across the community is that of like really really like hostile. And I
Well,
think that the approach should be more welcoming, and to grow the Bitcoin community, and help grow the development of the things that are being built on top of it, right? Rather than have more than half of the conversation be, oh, you can't put them in the same asset class together, or this is what's wrong with AVAX, this is what's wrong with this chain. I think it should be focusing on your own protocol. that
all
that
right.
that's all I'm saying. So like, I don't want to entertain this space to be altcoins versus BTC. I specifically just want to speak about like developments ongoing on BTC. I do have to hold a tight ship here, guys. You guys know that usually sometimes I do like to entertain the banter, but we are utilizing people's time, and we want to make the most of it. So Tomer, welcome.
Thank you. As
Yeah,
long as
yeah.
you're,
I'm
I
not
take it.
I'm not a debater, bro. I'm not a
Listen,
debater.
I'm not trying to
Yeah.
debate you, but I am trying to speak, and you haven't really let me get a word in
Go ahead,
edgewise.
brother.
Um, I understand you don't want any discussion of comparison of one protocol versus another, which I will honor. Although I have much to say about that, but if that's off grounds here, this is your space. I do want to say, I can maybe share a link to a couple of these things. I write. You don't know who I am, so I write about Bitcoin. I've written one article about Ethereum, which was mentioned by the other speaker. It's the only reason I bring it up, but it did end up being the top article on Hacker News for a day. So there was something to it that caught people's attention. But what I want to focus more on, if you want focus on Bitcoin exclusively from a Bitcoin advocate, it is what makes Bitcoin unique in this world, not just as compared against, say, other crypto things, but as compared to really any kind of entity in the world, any corporation, any government, any currency, any commodity. And there's a number of things. One of the articles I'll refer you to, and I'll share it before I leave the room, was an article that I wrote, like a year and a half ago, called "Bitcoiners Are Not Toxic, They Have Integrity." And it wasn't in comparison to other coins. It was in comparison to, you'll recall at one point about a year and a half ago, Elon Musk had Tesla buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. And then Elon Musk said, well, I'd like to make the blocks bigger and the blocks faster and this, that, the other. And Bitcoiners en masse told him to go fuck himself, basically. I think that was the exact expression that many used. And people wondered, what's going on here? Like, he's just trying to make some changes, maybe to improve it. And he put $1 billion in. Shouldn't he have the right to say that? And he's welcome to speak. Anyone in the world is welcome to make proposals to Bitcoin. These particular proposals that he was making are ones that have been thoroughly evaluated and rejected on the grounds that they damage Bitcoin's integrity. And in that article, I said, if you have a bridge and somebody comes to you and you're actually transporting a lot of really important things and people are using that bridge to go back and forth, and somebody says, some of these components that keep it safe, I think you should use lighter weight components. They may not be as durable, but they're more popular. Some of them are more environmentally friendly. Yes, they're not necessarily solid to the integrity of the bridge. And the point I was making is that if you succumb to these requests to make these changes that compromise the integrity of your bridge, the consequence is the bridge will collapse and people transporting stuff on it will die. But you did what was popular, and you followed a popular narrative, but one that wasn't sound from an engineering perspective. And that's what Bitcoin and Bitcoiners would rather see the price of Bitcoin go down with Elon dumping it than see the whole bridge collapse with making modifications to it that would destroy its integrity. And this is what you continuously see in the Bitcoin community that often gets mislabeled as toxicity. In order to make any changes to Bitcoin, you need complete consensus, essentially, of like pretty much all the users. And that means that many users, any small group of users, collectively have a veto over changes to the protocol. The protocol has been operating now for 14 years. It hasn't had any downtime in the last 12 years, right? If you think about that, Twitter Spaces was down earlier today. Bitcoin hasn't been down at all in 12 years, despite being a system that's very heavily attacked, despite being a system that has no employees, despite being a system that has no foundation to fund it. Right? It is this remarkable phenomenon of a system that exists, that operates flawlessly, no violation to its rules. There's never been a hack of its underlying protocol. There's never been someone who's managed to steal coins except for somebody else, like leaving them in somebody else's custody or losing or disclosing their private key. The blocks continue to come in at exactly as scheduled with no hard forks and no necessary upgrades. So it is this entity that operates and keeps its promises flawlessly. And like all the promises that were made in the white paper in 2008 about how frequently the blocks will come, what the supply issuance is, all these things, none of them have been breached. And that's really the most extraordinary thing about this, and why Bitcoiners are so adamant to not violate the integrity of the system. Now, I'm going to give just 1 second on it because I don't want to start the war here that you're asking me to avoid, and I want to honor that. that's not something that we see in any other tokens. And that's why we make the comparison to say Bitcoin is something special, and that special feature is not reproduced or replicated in any of these other things that we see. And I hope that's not offensive to your, that's, I'm just pointing out what's unique and distinct about the granddaddy of this space, which many of us would say is the only thing in its space, and everything else is a different space.
Yeah, man. Thank you for that explanation, dude. Getting some messages here saying that you're a legend, so it's good to hear the legend speak up here, brother. I definitely enjoy the value that you're giving us, and to my knowledge, I think something that BitTonsor is working on via Tau is essentially bringing stable coins onto the Bitcoin network. Would you happen to know about that? And excuse the plain question. I know other individuals, they like to ask questions in a very complex manner, but I think stable tokens on the Bitcoin network and denominated in satoshis could potentially kick off like a new ecosystem within BTC, and I think things like stacks. Trying to implement smart contracts would be something cool, and potentially it could be a narrative. Would you have
Yeah,
any thoughts on that?
I do, but you're going to push me into
It's fine.
territory
It's it's
that you
it's
asked
it's
me
fine,
not to go
brother.
into.
You can be as bearish as you want.
All right. I'll
Just
say
go
this.
ahead. Go ahead.
I'll say this. In the world of money, right? I just want you to imagine a scenario, and then I'll bring it back to this. Imagine you went to a local plaza and you wanted to get a Subway, like a submarine sandwich at Subway. So you went in and they said, "Oh, we don't accept the currency you're using here. You need to turn it into sandwich tokens." And so you pay some conversion fee, you buy the sandwich token, they give you change in sandwich token. You go next door, you want to upgrade your cell phone, and they say, "Oh, we don't use sandwich token over here. We use cell phone token." So you have to make some conversion with your change. You're constantly converting. You're not able to use the same currency everywhere. It makes no sense. And part of what Bitcoin is trying to do is say to the world, there needs only to be one token, and it needs to be thoroughly decentralized, so nobody's in control of it. No, everyone can audit it, everyone can participate in it, everyone can use it, everyone understands exactly how much of it there is. It's incorruptible. As soon as you start to create these additions that create all these other protocols, you're starting to move towards what is essentially barter. It's like, well, I need to convert this coin to that coin to this coin to that coin to get something done. That's not how money should work, right? And the word token that has just been thrown in here, it's just another substitute for coin or money. And so when we start to get this plurality of tokens everywhere in the world, we don't understand which one has any sense of value. So something like you mentioned, like Stacks, which says it's building on Bitcoin but needs its own token, becomes self-defeating. It's like, if you want to create functionality on Bitcoin that doesn't damage the integrity of the system, doesn't risk a hard fork, doesn't risk the system crashing, that's very welcome and invited. But if you want to create another token and claim that that's building on Bitcoin, it Bitcoiners will largely reject that hypothesis and say, no, you're building something else. You're trying to connect it to Bitcoin, but you're building another currency. And what the world doesn't need is a plethora of different currencies that create all sorts of unnecessary volatility, and a need for people to try to understand which currency does what and why it's different. Like, the Bitcoin story is very simple, right? There's a block every 10 minutes. There's coins issued. They get cut in half every 4 years. There's a total of 21 million coins. That's it. That's all you need to teach anybody, really. All these other things with wildly changing, infinite supply changes, monetary policy changes, vote, voting mechanisms, DAOs, all these other kinds of things. Nobody knows what's really going on, and you have to study them intensely just to follow what's happening in even one of them. Now, I'm going to go back to one of the things you mentioned. I think, did you say Taro for the stable coins? You mentioned something about Tensor.
Tau BitTensor. I believe Naka Rose's hand right after
Yeah,
I
I've
said
I've
that.
never heard of
So
BitTensor in my
yeah,
life, so
uh,
it may be something. But there is a proposal for a protocol, basically called Taro, which doesn't present, which simply uses Taproot, which is the most recent transaction type added to Bitcoin, and um, and it's intended to be able to create tokens. That can move over Bitcoin's Lightning Network. They can be created on chain, which is something that existed before. But for the first time, these things can be moved on Bitcoin's Lightning Network, which is super high speed, like instantaneous, ultra low cost transactions. And the the use case that most people are talking about for this thing, it's new. It's not released in production yet. The use case that most people are talking for is that you can move US dollar stable coins on this. So we'll have to see. One of the things that I think this notion of moving all these things that have existed in the crypto space onto Bitcoin is is not good for the crypto space, but it's not necessarily good for Bitcoin either. Like a lot of these things, and again, I'm trying to be as polite as I can here. A lot of these things have crashed down by 99 point something percent throughout their history, right? What were the hot altcoins in the last bull market are not even mentioned or talked about nowadays, except for a couple of them. And so the overwhelming majority of these things disappear. They come and they go. And the notion that someone might say, well, it's on Bitcoin, so it's here to stay, would be fallacious. While Bitcoin is here to stay, creating some silly token on it to buy submarine sandwiches, as a hypothetical example, would ultimately be a failure. And so just because you can create it on Bitcoin doesn't create the value, right? And I think this is, to me, the big issue with people who are minting tokens. Like this whole FTX debacle comes from the fact that they printed up something called FTX token, FTT, and it had no value behind it, but but they pretended that it did, and they manipulated the price of it, and billions of dollars worth of investment value were lost. And we see the same thing happening over and over. Nobody gets to print Bitcoin out of thin air. It takes work, good honest work, to make Bitcoin, and and nobody can print more of it than is scheduled to be printed at the schedule that is set to be printed. So it really is a totally different thing. And the enthusiasm, I understand that you are enthusiastic about innovations and different things happening, but you do have to do some due diligence around which innovation is printing something for the sake of saying that you can print something, and which innovation actually advances civilization, moves what is useful, creates utility for people, that moves things forward. Bitcoin's trying to play in a very narrow space. It's saying throughout human history, money has been corrupted. It's either been stolen by force, or it's been printed into oblivion by people with special powers. And Bitcoin's here to bring an end to that corruption. That's that's a very big goal, but it's a very narrow goal, very simply stated.
yes,
Very
yes.
hard to know what the
I
goals are of these other
um,
things.
I do have one question and one scenario. I am an enthusiast when it comes to these innovations. Like for example, I like to use the Avalanche chain. Um, I like to go on the AVAX chain to purchase some goods. Like there are some stores here in Miami where I can essentially bridge from Ethereum or Solana to AVAX and purchase things like Snickers bars or meals, especially in these gyms around here that are implementing some crypto payments. So as far as payments goes, I absolutely love it. They're fast, they're quick, and AVAX is one token that I'm looking at to accumulate sometime next year. But I do have one question for you. I don't want to take much of your time. So essentially, what happens if these exchanges fall down, right? Because if Binance goes down, then the tail risk for all other exchanges beneath them have a huge probability of going down. Like Binance actually carries over 10% of all the BTC supply that's currently out. So if you have that tailwind, essentially for the retail consumer, the easiest front ends outside of Robinhood, and I know Fidelity has some options for people to purchase their crypto. What happens to BTC for the next run? Like, what's the next narrative? How will retail purchase their BTC? And where
Maybe,
like
maybe,
how
maybe you
much?
should. Maybe you should invite Corey to answer that. He might have something to say about that.
Okay. Look, I don't want you guys. I don't want you guys to summon the cyber hornets and use Superman laser eyes on me and disintegrate me to the ground
Look,
because I like using Aave.
I've been very polite, haven't I?
You have. It's been
And
it's awesome having you up here, dude. Like, honestly, like
Right.
my direct messages are blowing up
my
saying
caution
how
to
you're a
you, like
legend.
I think there's a big caution in the question that you're asking, right? Like, first
Yes,
of all,
yes.
your question acknowledges the possibility that these big crypto casinos are at risk, because we've seen a number of them go down, and
Yes.
there's concern about their liquidity. There's concern. So again, the narrative, if you will, the good advice that is the advice that's been the advice since 2009 in Bitcoin is buy Bitcoin and keep it in your own self custody. It's not meant to be a gambling token, a casino chip to bet on other
Yeah.
casino chips to see what comes up and what goes down. And this is the danger that exists with all of those other tokens. And if these exchanges go down, the liquidity and of all those other things disappears. But Bitcoin
Yeah.
keeps on marching because Bitcoin is these, like, I run Bitcoin. I run 2
There's-
Bitcoin nodes in my house, and all the other Bitcoiners here probably run their own
Yeah.
nodes too.
Hey,
So
Tomer,
Bitcoin keeps on running. The exchanges stop.
Hey, Tomer,
there's
you sound like a
there's
very intelligent guy, and it's been nice to listen to you talk about that. I've actually learned a couple of things from what you're saying, and it's very interesting. You seem like a good writer and whatnot. But there's a few of us here, and I understand the whole thing about Bitcoin, and people really appreciate Bitcoin and what it's trying to do, where it's trying to go. But I might even speak for Payne a little bit on this one as well too. But there's a few of us in here. I'm sure there's other people in this room, and I consider myself one. I'm strictly a trader. I don't care about any of the garbage utility, blah, blah, any of these junk coins, man. I'm here to make money, get in, get out, take my profits so I can sit on my ass, drink overpriced coffee, and fucking eat avocado toast. I don't care, man. I just want to make money. That's it.
guys.
I think
All right,
I think that's really fair. I think that's like very honest. I really appreciate that, because a lot of
Miss D plus. I'm sorry to
It's about
interrupt
taking
you.
profits, man. I want to make money. I'm
sorry.
here to make money.
I'm sorry to
I go where the
interrupt
money
you, but
goes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Miss D. But Naka has had his hand up for a while, and
You should definitely
Naka's
D
my
follow
boy.
him.
Kyle?
D is a developer, so listen to her after Naka's done because she's got some good stuff to say.
D++ is trouble, but I have a question for Toma. I think, well, you're talking about suggestions for improvements to Bitcoin. I have an improvement to Bitcoin, and I want you to tell me why you think it's wrong. I think the Bitcoin issuance schedule is wrong. I don't think there should be halvings. I think Bitcoin should basically just have the block reward be pretty much constant from this point. Let's say 1 Bitcoin per block for, the next 100 years. What would you say to that?
I say you only have to convince every single Bitcoiner in the world to make that change.
Okay, but
and so,
right.
But you haven't told me why you think it. Like you just said, I think something arbitrary. It's
okay.
Guys,
I do have one question. It's just a simple question. You guys said that there's someone here called Corey that you want me to bring up.
Corey Swan.
Corey Swan.
He's he the guy with the check mark with like the slick
Yeah,
back?
he's got a blue check.
Okay.
Yeah, he can show you a place to buy Bitcoin when all of the casinos blow up. I think he knows a bit.
Oh, okay, Mr. Corey, if you want to come up here, feel free.
He's the broad.
Go ahead, guys.
So here's my question for Toma, right? Like, it doesn't make any sense to have the block reward go down anymore, right? Like, it should just be one.
Hold on. You can't just say, I want it to be double, and that makes sense without supporting it, and then say,
okay,
it doesn't make sense to be like it. Do you know what? Do you know why it makes sense for it to be what it is? Because that's the promise that was made at the beginning. Like when someone makes a promise and they keep it, that's honor.
Right.
And so
But
you want to break the promise
yes,
and change
absolutely.
it because you've had an idea pop into
because
your head.
I have an idea. And let me tell you what the problem is, right? So Bitcoin's block reward is basically the amount that it pays for security, right? So it's a fee it's effectively like a tax on holders that goes to miners to secure the chain.
No, that's like, I'm going to have to challenge you there, because Bitcoin's block reward is the fair issuance mechanism that Satoshi Nakamoto created so that the coins would be distributed to those people who supported the network and put work into it. Yes, one of the effects is that it adds a lot of security, as we can see. But the question was, Bitcoin wasn't pre-mined. It wasn't given to insiders. It's being given out to volunteers who participate and take risks and do work in the real world, anywhere in the world, in order to get their hands on some of this very scarce supply that nobody is going to get to increase to or double or make it infinite just because they said so in a Twitter Spaces.
So here's the problem, right? If you have halvings, if you halve the security budget every 4 years, eventually the security budget for Bitcoin becomes too small, and somebody will 51% attack it, and you'll all be wrecked. So, you actually want the security budget now to be roughly constant, which means, like, instead of going to 3 Bitcoin per block or 3.125, whatever it's going to be, just go to like 1 Bitcoin per block after the next halving.
Listen,
and then just
Nakamoto, Nakamoto Lisk, sorry, we've seen what changing monetary policy does. It wreaks havoc. There's a promise that's been made. Bitcoin security budget will continue to be appropriate to wealthy people. Like, you're making all sorts of assumptions, presuming that you know what's going to go on in the whole wide world forever into the future.
Hey, Tomer, I got one more for you.
Well, let me finish.
How about this, you guys? Hold up about all these, again, going back to like what each coin does and like the utility and blah, 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 blah. So I used to work a normal job, like other people have a job. Now I don't have a job anymore. I do whatever the hell I want, and I've never owned a single Bitcoin.
Okay, but that's a little bit off the topic of my question. So
what
I just
the hell does that have to do?
I just want
talking about value and assets and making money and being a trader, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day what the rest of the
space. Did you read the title of the space, or are you just here to just babble, Vestige?
Okay, so why?
I think these people think this is a Bitcoin maxi space. It's not a Bitcoin maxi space.
Can I just ask?
No, go ahead, Naka.
Gentlemen, we're here joined by the power of friendship. Naka is clearly speaking. Let's all go one by one. Remember, we are all here joined by the power of friendship. Naka, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks. So, Tomer, here's a question. I actually genuinely do not know the answer to this. Well, actually, I have a bit of an inkling, but where exactly did Satoshi get the idea of having halving the security budget forever and ever from? Like, why that? Because there's an infinite set of choices there, and he chose that. Why that one?
I mean, I don't know. He's not here. We can't ask him, right? Or her.
Well, I can. Tomer, I know Wei Dai. I know him personally, right? I can send him a message on Facebook, and I can ask him. Maybe I'll do that. But I think this halving the security budget every 4 years is a big mistake, because what's going to happen probably by 2040 is the block rewards are going to be so small, it's going to be very easy to 51% attack Bitcoin and wreck everyone.
Yeah. So I think you misunderstand, but you misunderstand where the security budget can come from. If I can just make a quick response to that, like the security budget comes from fees. And fees are in addition to the block reward. And if you imagine you're someone like Michael Saylor in the year 2040, you got 100,000 Bitcoins, 140,000 Bitcoins, and you're concerned about keeping them secure. And let's say part of what you're concerned about, Nakamoto Lisk, is that there's not enough reward in the subsidy and normal fees in using the system to create enough security. Well, right now, imagine you owned a whole bunch of gold and you kept it in a vault. Would you not pay some of that gold to keep it secure? would not the wealthiest Bitcoiners pay
Yeah,
as
but
fees to miners?
Hold on. I want to
for the
add.
Let me finish the
development team
sentence,
of
though.
Bitcoin.
Guys. I
Would
want
not
to
the
add.
richest
We can't
Bitcoiners
even fund
pay
that.
Hold on, guys.
to secure their Bitcoin?
Guys. I want to add to something that Naka said about the block reward. Given that these exchanges might go down to pure knock on wood, right? But if that happens, how is that going to affect the next halving cycle? Because Bitcoin is still following the halving cycle. So my question is, it's like, as far as price goes, what's going to be the oracle for that? Is it going to be Fidelity? Is it going to be the CME? I'm sorry if I am not able to discuss in the nitty gritty of the tech and all that stuff. But one thing I do want to throw attention to again.
The Bitcoin halving cycle doesn't care about price, right? The Bitcoin software literally doesn't even know what the price is.
Yeah,
all it knows about is how frequently blocks are being mined.
But Naka, like with the price right now, like miners are essentially, aren't they near break even at 18K? So by the time the next halving comes around, pardon?
It depends. Mining's a market.
Yeah. So
it's like a market for anything else. Some people are going to be efficient. Some people are going to be inefficient. Some people are going to go out of business. It's just the way it works, right?
So doesn't the price essentially have to double by the time we get close to the halving? Because then what you're going to have a mass exodus from the miners. And if we want to talk market cap, because I know someone had mentioned, altcoins going down 90%, 99%, this, that, and the other. Well, if you look at the mining companies, like from peak to where we are now, the evaluations for mining companies are down over 90%. And on top of that, if Binance does go under, you have to think how many of these newer miners are attached to that risk. There can be
miners are down bad right now.
Hold on, please. And you have to think, like, how far do the dominoes fall after that? So
mining's a market, right? So in the next epoch, there's going to be about 600,000 Bitcoins up for grabs in block rewards, and probably about 20,000 Bitcoins in fees, right? So somebody is going to come along and run mining operations to grab that, right? It's a market though, Wabi. Like, some of them are going to go bust. It's like car companies. Did you know that some car companies go bust? Some sandwich shops go bust, but some don't, right? So mining's just competitive, and they're going to spend roughly, next cycle, they're going to spend roughly 500,000 BTC to do the mining, right? The problem that I'm trying to get across to Toma is, by 2060, that amount of Bitcoins that's available and up for grabs, because it's exponentially decreasing, it's going to be like 1,300 Bitcoins. And by 2,100, it's going to be like fucking 3 or something.
I just want to say, like, over time, should this become consensus, doesn't that essentially give Ethereum a place to flip it?
Wabi, let's not trigger them with
I know.
You don't want these people when they don't mention the E word.
I mean, hold on. Like, to be fair, you're the one who said let's not compare one thing versus the other, and now you're the one who's initiating it. So
that's disingenuous.
So be consistent, and I'll be consistent too, happily. But I certainly don't think that something that willy-nilly changes its whole protocol numerous times every single year is even in the same class of things to discuss as what I described Bitcoin to be to you. So playing around with monetary policy is what was the cause for Bitcoin to be invented in the first place. And here you have Ethereum was 5 coins per block. Then Vitalik changed it to 4. Then he changed it to 3. Then he changed it to however proof of stake is working and issuing. And then there's the burn. So there's continuous changes in the monetary policy of Ethereum by a small group of people. If you don't understand that that's the whole thing that that Bitcoin was created to fix, a promise that is predictable, that won't be broken by a small group of people or a single individual, you're missing the point of the value of it, because you're just trusting that someone at Ethereum will continue to make the right decisions for you. Like, take a look at the central bank of the United States of America. They're making changes. They're telling you it's for your own good. I got some news for you if you believe that. Like, it's not for your own good. It's for their own good. It's for the good of the people who are closest to the influence, to the decision making. And the same thing has been true consistently with other coins, Ethereum most notable of all. So just
I was
back
just
and be aware of what's going on.
I was just giving a narrative for a potential to Ethereum flip BTC and market cap. I didn't mean that as like a personal offense or anything like that.
I'm not personally offended, but I'm saying you have tried to set up.
That's all. So I think
you
we
tried
have
to set up the conditions for the discussion, and then you violated them yourself.
So. Yeah, it was just a little mention, brother. So, anyways. Okay, moving on. D++, ma'am, welcome to the show. I know you haven't had your chance to speak yet. It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome.
Thanks. Yeah, a lot of topics have been brought up, and I wanted to respond briefly to some of them since I've been here. Yeah, I think Tomer made a really, really good point that I don't think people maybe really fully got, which is that block subsidy or that block reward is how Satoshi bootstrapped the network, meaning that's how the coins are distributed. So calling it a security budget is a little bit of a misnomer. And, a lot of folks talk about the block reward going asymptotically down to zero by 2140, but to Nakamoto's point, because it drops off exponentially, it's more like 2040 that we're going to see it become quite negligible. But, that said, Kathy Wood has a prediction of 1 million USD per BTC by 2030. And, nobody knows what Bitcoin's going to do, but we do expect that the exchange rate denominated in USD terms continues appreciating. And it continues to appreciate as the block subsidy depreciates. So that's sort of the answer, I believe.
But that doesn't really.
Isn't that a bad?
No. That doesn't fix the problem. The reason it doesn't is because the number of bitcoins that you're spending is fixed at 21 million, and your security budget is going to go down and down and down and down and down, measured in Bitcoin. I don't care what the dollar price does. If I can steal 21 million bitcoins by spending like 3, then I'll do it, right? Even if they're worth $1 million each. So eventually, this is gonna be a big problem for you.
So Nakamoto, you're correct in that the dollar amount is somewhat irrelevant. So when I say the dollar amount, what I mean is the purchasing power of those dollars. So yeah, if the dollar hyperinflates, where 100 billion USD has the purchasing power of 1 USD today, it's irrelevant. So I'm talking about purchasing power, and that purchasing power can buy you things in the real world, such as electricity, which is, of course, what we buy in order to secure the Bitcoin network. Now, that said, we did see a drop off of hash rate last year to the tune of around 25% a couple times when some miners in China got flooded physically in their locations. And then, of course, when Bitcoin was banned in China. So that hash rate fell off and there was no problem whatsoever. There was no interrupted service. And of course, there was no security issue there whatsoever last year. TikTok, Nextblock, Bitcoin was working just fine. Now, that said, if the price of Bitcoin does not continue to appreciate, and if folks don't continue to be onboarded to the Bitcoin network, in other words, if people aren't really using Bitcoin by 2140, then I do think it would be somewhat of a problem, right? Like, people aren't using it. How are we going to get folks interested to secure the network, and how will they be compensated? So I do think there is somewhat of a binary outcome. I think that either folks really use Bitcoin, and then that pays for the mining subsidy, or they don't use Bitcoin and there's some kind of problem or reason why they're not using it. Now, that said, I can't predict any problem or reason why folks wouldn't be using Bitcoin, because it's hard money. It has a disinflationary monetary policy. It's very attractive for all of these reasons that Tomer described. But hey, I could be missing something entirely. And but I think about it pretty much all day, every day, and so far I can't really think of any reason why people wouldn't continue using Bitcoin. That said, some cool things are happening in Bitcoin world, such as Taro, which is Lightning Labs' answer to those assets, if you will, stable coins, altcoins on Bitcoin. And Tomer, made the point that the upgrade to Bitcoin Taproot made that possible. So you will see the issuance of assets on Bitcoin. One thing I would say is, well, this is all kind of cool to tinker with, and I'm not like morally opposed to stable coins. There's always going to be that like counterparty risk of the issuer. So although Bitcoin is secure, the Bitcoin network secures the Bitcoins or the UTXOs that are endogenous or native to the Bitcoin world. It can't secure anything that is linked outside of its own system. So that said, you can use like Merkle proofs to prove that you didn't double spend some kind of asset within Taro, but you can't prove that those assets are being inflated outside of Bitcoin by the issuer. So you're never really going to have the security of Bitcoin with any kind of asset that is being transported on top of Bitcoin. And then that said, smart contracts have kind of always existed in Bitcoin. When Satoshi created Bitcoin, he created an entire programming language along with it. And he didn't have to do this, but he did it for us anyway. It's pretty cool. It's called Bitcoin script. And so you can write contracts in Bitcoin script, and with the upgrade last year called Taproot, you can make those scripts a little more private and a little more scalable in some cool ways. There's other things you can do also. There's other kind of more expressive languages and opcodes happening outside of Bitcoin, such as like liquid Bitcoin, or even this language called Simplicity that you could use on some kind of federation. So you can do all kinds of really, really cool smart contract stuff on Bitcoin. And the other thing was, someone mentioned that they didn't really care about any of this utility and they just kind of wanted to get rich. And I really appreciate that. I think that's just really, really honest. And I think that's completely fair. And I think there's kind of a bit of some confusion where folks think that like Bitcoiners don't want to get rich or don't care about money, when in reality we really do. Like, we like money too. Trust me, we like money, we like having it, and we like protecting it. But most importantly, we like protecting our wealth. So for that reason, we like to park it somewhere where it can be protected.
That's the only
Yes,
reason
yes.
any of us are here, for money.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Guys,
Let me
I want to thank you, D plus.
Let me just say one last thing, and then we can move on. So when it comes to swapping in and out of altcoins, the problem is there's always that counterparty risk, and the problem is that there's always that risk of getting rugged. And so that's the reason why I don't engage in trading. Yeah, because it's just too risky.
Yes. But I do want to say something in pertains to altcoins. I think the last cycle we had good chains such as Avalanche again, that I think personally brought value to the space. I think it's created a lot of wealth. It's created a lot more jobs than people want to acknowledge, especially Ethereum. I think that's contributed to the spotlight that Bitcoin has. Personally, like, I think Vitalik Buterin and Satoshi Nakamoto are some of the best human beings when it comes to the innovation space. And also our friends at Avalanche Labs. We have a few of the community members in here. Thank you, D plus. You brought up a bunch of points, and that was really the point of the space, to bring out the underlying narratives for the next cycle. We all love Satoshi Nakamoto. We all want to denominate our wealth on Satoshis. That's all fine and dandy. But me personally, I like using my transaction activity on the AVAX C chain. That's just me. That's just kind of like my personal bias. And okay, we'll move on. We'll move on. I'm not. It's kind of so it's kind of a joke, right? It's kind of a joke that I have with Carter, and I helped him bridge from Solana to AVAX so he can make some payments on Uber Eats to purchase his favorite candy bar known as Snickers. And for his birthday, I sent him a triple XL AVAX shirt. I'm gonna get him in the gym and get him all buffed up so he can get laser eyes at the top of the next bull run. So you heard it here, guys. The moment Carter comes back on Twitter and puts laser eyes, it's probably gonna be the top. So without further ado, I see we have hold on, brother.
Yo,
I see we
Bitcoin's
have
going to 200K.
it probably is, dude. It probably is. But I see we have our boy Nick. He was the original guest for the space. I don't want to do our boy dirty, one of our writers at Because Bitcoin, and we have our Discord link up top. I see we
real
have
quick,
over
I gotta go,
300
but
people. We
listen,
have over 300 people on the space. So I think
yeah,
right now
I would
is
I would just issue a caution to anybody listening to this space that it seems likely that there are paid shills for AVAX here. So
we're not paid shills.
Homer, how dare you suggest it? How dare you?
Because now we have to get into the fact that a lot of these coins are pre-mined, and there are people who get paid to dump them on unsuspecting.
Okay, Nick, go ahead, brother.
Tomer, I don't think our friend Wabi here is paid by AVAX. I sure hope not. But Wabi, you wanted to talk narratives, and there's a narrative. I think the common narrative that I hear around Bitcoin, I think, is a misconception, is that it's never going to be used for payments, right? Like, it's a great store of value, but it'll never be used for payments because it's too slow. And I think we have D++ up on the stage here, and I know she has a lot of knowledge in Lightning, and I think that's one of the most impressive and important things that's going on in the space, for a couple reasons. When you talk about the future of payments and using Bitcoin for payment system, I don't think base layer is going to be used for that. I think it's actually a really awful payment system. It's going to take too long. It's just not feasible. But what it is really good at, right, and what it does great for 13 years without fail, is having a replacement to the base layer monetary system, right? So, like, if I were to give an example to the current fiat system, if I wanted to send Wicked some US dollars, I'm not going to be using an ACH transfer most of the time. It's slow, it's clunky. I'd rather just send him some money via PayPal or Venmo or a second layer network like that. And I think that what we're seeing with Lightning right now is that it's a second layer being built on top of.
Hey, Nick, your mic is rugging, by the way, brother. Your mic is rugging. Oh, and by the way, I want to make it clear, I'm not paid by AVAX. That is literally just an inner circle joke within our community. Thank you.
Can you hear me now, Wabi?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm gonna split. I'm gonna have to get going. Thank you for having me up here. It's been fun, and maybe I'll see you guys around again.
Thank you, Tomer.
See you later, brother.
Bye now.
I'll see you near the halving, brother. I can't wait. I can't wait for those spaces to start popping up, man. I think that's going to be really exciting as we get closer to the halving. I think we're going to make some more friends. I like making friends, guys. How many friends have we made today? We have currently like 200 plus friends on here. It's great to be here. I love you all. You guys are awesome. You guys are making my Friday night so invaluable. Anyways, Nick, go ahead, brother.
I don't know where exactly I got rugged there, but I'll keep it brief. I think I think with Lightning, whenever someone comes up to me and says, "Well, Bitcoin's great, we get it, we get the store of value aspect, but it just can't be used as payments," I can crush that narrative in 2 minutes by just asking that person to download a Lightning wallet. And within a second, I can send them sats over Lightning. And it doesn't matter what wallet, they're all interoperable. And I guess, like, I know there's reservations though about Lightning as well right now. I know it's not a perfect system, and I know we have D++ up here. If you'd be willing to, I'd love to hear what you're excited about in the Lightning space, and what do you think is valid as some reservations about it and its future going forward.
All right, we'll hold that question. I know Avid has had his hand up for a minute. So after
No,
Avid, we'll move
I'll
directly
defer to
to.
D. I'll defer to D. I just was going to ask you, Wabi, actually about Lightning, because you had mentioned that you liked AVAX because it was cheap and fast. And this is the thing, is a lot of people who say this,
Wait,
and they've never even tried Lightning. So
Avid,
I'll defer my time.
Avid, you can't hear anything. You just start over.
Sorry. Yeah. So I was going to say, like you mentioned earlier, that you were using AVAX to buy candy bars or something.
Yeah,
It was
Avid,
fast and
that's a
cheap.
joke. Avid, that's literally like, that's an inside joke, by the way. It's an inside joke. Like,
but I'll defer to D because I'd like to hear.
It's a joke, dude. It's literally an insider, dude. Like, it's been an insider since we've known each other, bro. Making payments on the AVAX chain after bridging from Solana to Doge, dude. Like,
D
go ahead.
had some really good stuff to say about Lightning. We were talking about submarine swaps, and I know she has a ton of knowledge. So I'd like to hear, as well as what Nick was asking, if what she's excited about on Lightning, new stuff, and maybe reservations as well. So D, if you care to speak, we'd love to hear you.
Yeah. We've got this payments protocol that inherits the security of the Bitcoin blockchain that I think a lot of people just have never heard of or have never used. And you really have to use it to see how extraordinary this is. So you can use Bitcoin to send funds to anywhere in the world in less than 1 second with finality of settlement. So you can't claw that payment back. It's final and it's irreversible, and there's no wait time. There's no blockchain, there's no mining, there's no confirmations. And the fee is, for all intents and purposes, negligible. I mean, we're talking like a tiny fraction of 1%. So I might spend less than 1 penny to send funds to anywhere in the world. And you might wonder, like, why have I never heard of this? Why have I never used this? And it's simply because there are a lot of altcoins that like to mention that Bitcoin is slow or it's expensive, and they either don't know about Lightning or they're just kind of conveniently ignoring it because it does not fit the narrative of what they're trying to sell you, which is transactions per second. So transactions per second are really a bad metric to look at when you're evaluating some kind of blockchain, because folks will say that Bitcoin only does 7 to 11 transactions per second. And it's kind of true and it's kind of false. So yeah, on the Bitcoin base layer, for a reason, we have very small blocks, and that is to protect the decentralization and to protect the censorship resistance and to protect the security of the network. And we could increase the transactions per second, we can increase the block size, but this would all be at opposition to our core tenets of decentralization and security. So instead, we have this payments protocol that uses Bitcoin transactions and inherits that security in a peer-to-peer network. And it doesn't require a blockchain. It does not require mining. And it works. And it works beautifully. And I use it all the time. In fact, I can buy a beer here in Austin with Lightning. I've bought nachos and lobsters and all kinds of amazing things with Lightning. And I don't have to sit there and, wait for a block to come in, and it's extraordinary. So yeah, if anyone's never used Lightning, I like to always say you have to kind of see it for yourself. So I have like an ongoing offer. If you've never used Lightning, you can go to the App Store, whether that's on Android or iPhone. You can download Wallet of Satoshi. That's just Wallet of Satoshi, like Satoshi Nakamoto. And then you just click the receive button. It'll give you an invoice number. You just paste that invoice number in my DMs and I will pay it. And like, if we're talking in person, by the time I tell you that the payment has been sent, you already have received it. It's like insane how fast. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say it takes less than 1 second with finality. It's insane. It's extraordinary. And it's the future. So this is disrupting the global remittance markets. This is creating Bitcoin circular economies. This is the reason why El Salvador has adopted Bitcoin as legal tender. Without the Lightning Network, you wouldn't really be able to use Bitcoin for everyday payments like you're seeing in El Salvador, especially it's a poor country. So they're not going to be wanting to spend a lot of money on fees. But, sadly, a lot of poor countries do spend extraordinary amounts on fees for transfers, back for remittance payments and things like that. And Lightning is totally reshaping that.
Perfect. So I'm going to go to El Salvador sometime next year and purchase some Snickers bars with my boy Payne, and I'll look forward to that. I see we have someone called Wicked Smart Bitcoin. Welcome to the show. Okay, go ahead, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me up. I came up when Nakamoto, I can't say the name, Nakamoto was up here. I wanted to respond to something he said, and it's unfortunate he left, but he was basically flooding this idea that a miner who is 51% attacking the network can somehow, steal all the Bitcoin. Like he was inferring it, right? Because he said if the security budget gets to be only 3 Bitcoin, and then the honeypot is all the Bitcoin, 21 million, then obviously they're going to do that. But I wanted to come up here to just dispel this FUD and just to point out how like incredibly wrong it is. Okay, because the only thing you can do when you're 51% attacking the network is double spend your own Bitcoin. And then in doing so, you're kind of fucking yourself because you're like outing yourself. You know what I'm saying? So like the worst thing you could do is literally spend a little Bitcoin and then rewrite the chain so that spend didn't happen. Like you spend a little Bitcoin, you get whatever it is you want in return for that. So maybe you like, let's say you send like $1 million worth of Bitcoin to an exchange, you get your $1 million worth, you take it out, and then you rewrite the chain because you have 51% and you double spend it again. So you get $1 million more of Bitcoin. First of all, everyone in the network is going to see that happen. And then second of all, I mean, like what the fuck do you think is going to happen next? Do you think you're going to get away with it? No. And as soon as you out yourself, you're kind of toast. So it's not like, having the majority of the mining hash rate allows you to steal all the Bitcoin. I just wanted to say that straight out because Nakamoto clearly doesn't know what he's talking about and hasn't done enough research on Bitcoin.
Well, yeah, that's right, Wicked. You can't
fork from there too.
Sorry, guys. Let's do this one at a time.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point, Wicked, because it's essentially kind of like bouncing a check. Like you can bounce a check, and to your point, the network would notice that you were trying to do this, and they would simply just increase the number of confirmations they required to consider a payment to be so-called final. Now, that said, you can bounce a check that you yourself wrote, but you can't reverse public-private key cryptography, and you can't reverse SHA-256 hashing algorithms. Yeah. Like there's certain things you just can't do. So yeah, you cannot steal anyone's Bitcoin.
Yeah, you can't spend anyone else's.
Isn't SHA-256? Didn't that algorithm like get created by the CIA in like 2001 or something like that?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it was
Central Intelligence, Satoshi Nakamoto. I find that pretty cool. I look forward to the movie, but D, sorry to cut you off, but I want to give equal airtime to everybody. My boy Payne, he's been up here with his hand raised for a minute. Payne, go ahead, brother.
What's going on? I just had a quick question for D++. I first wanted to say shout out Austin, great city. And second, I wanted to say, so like one thing I see with Lightning, I think it's a great system, and I'm all for it because I'm pretty, like I say, open-minded to just new layers and new blockchains and stuff. So I don't see any problem with it, but I've noticed a lot of like BTC maxis don't necessarily like it, and they're saying, oh, like this is basically a layer 2, and it's not, they want it to be settled on the original layer. So I was just going to ask you, like, what anecdotally, like what percentage of Bitcoiners do you think like are for it or against it, and do you think it'll have success within the community if people are like calling against it that are for Bitcoin?
Yeah, hey, I'd love to show you Lightning. Like if you're open to it.
I've used it. It's integrated on Cash App, and it's a great system. I think it's awesome. But I've just noticed a lot of traditional Bitcoiners have been like, some of them have been speaking out against it just because they.
Well, I think.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And just quickly, yeah. So just with regard to SHA, the NSA did create SHA-256. It's a hashing algorithm that's used extensively all over the internet. It's not just used in Bitcoin. But that said, there are some OGs who have been around since 2010, 2011, 2012, who heard about Lightning circa 2017, maybe tried it when it was still in alpha stage, and people weren't really using it because it was literally just being invented, and maybe got a little discouraged because it was still being created at that time. And they didn't really come back to Lightning. And so, yeah, you would have probably not have had the best user experience in 2017. However, now that user experience is fantastic, as you know, and some of those OGs have kind of circled back to Lightning and they're giving it a second chance. So NVK is a great example. He is the creator of the Cold Card hardware wallet that a lot of Bitcoiners love. I myself love. And now he's actually looking into developing Lightning hardware products. He's working on innovating in the space. And he was one of those Bitcoin boomers that was kind of like, Lightning, kind of shaking his fist at the sky type thing. So, they'll warm up to it. It's inevitable, and they already are. So I haven't come across any OGs at this point in 2022 that are opposed to Lightning.
All right, that's perfect. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to Wicked, and then after that, I'm going to accept all the speaker requests, and we'll go one by one. We're going to run a tight ship until the end of the show, all right? Hope that's cool with you guys. I want to thank you guys again for coming into the space and listening to the discussion. I value each of the speakers and listeners here. Thank you all for coming up. This is the first BTC exclusive space that we've had, and we'll definitely at least try to run more of these each week, at least once. And it's great to experiment. I know some altcoins got mentioned in there, but I just want to make it clear that it's all in good fun. I do like the BTC network, and I'm a big proponent of the security aspect of BTC, and also the growing network effect. Hash rate goes up slowly over time on a logarithmic base. So, without further ado, we'll bring up Wicked. I know he had his hand raised, and then we'll bring up the requested people who want to speak. We'll go up with Sabrina first, but Wicked, go ahead, brother.
Thanks. I'll say one thing, and then I have to jump, but thanks for having me up. And it was just kind of building off of what Div++ was saying, and this idea that Lightning is, Lightning, even though it's been worked on for a number of years now, it's still in its infancy. You guys remember using email when it first came out? How about a few years after it first came out? It was still clunky, right? And here we are 10, 15, 20 years after it first came out, and now it's seamless. And the same thing is happening with Lightning. New technologies built within Lightning are coming out all the time and being worked on. Is it called splicing, D++? Is that the one I'm really excited about?
Yeah, we all are.
I'm really excited about splicing. I think that will make the network a lot more robust. And then there's other second layers that are coming out that are going to kind of, be good kind of counterparts to Lightning, like Fedimints, I think are going to be an important part of the ecosystem. So, I guess all of this is to say that, you hear us saying this all the time, but we're still very early, right? Like Bitcoin is the base layer, and that's kind of the foundation that all these things are being built on. But, here we are, and, Lightning's only a few years old. Fedimints aren't even released yet. And there's all sorts of new ideas that are continuously being thought of and built out around this ecosystem, and adoption is increasing, and everything is scaling beautifully, and it's all happening nice and slowly without things breaking. And this is exactly how you want a monetary base layer to be built out. So anyways, with that, I'm going to jump. Thanks for having me up.
No problem, brother. It was good having you up here. Thank you so much for participating. And we'll go up next with Sabrina. How are you today, Sabrina? Welcome. Sabrina Ainsworth, are you there? Okay. All right. I guess
Sabrina,
she's not available. Yeah. We'll go next with Black Widow. Widow, welcome to the show. Good to have you up here. How are you doing today?
What's up, boys? Love being here. This is actually one of my favorite spaces that you've held. This has been amazing. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about price. and about the halving and stuff like that. So do we think that there's going to be some front running towards the halving, or is this some sort of algorithm that directs price
Well,
that's like
well,
stable?
well, typically, like just by standard, if the rewards are going to be cut by half, then essentially you would expect, price to be at about 36,000, 35,000, given that the break even price to mine BTC is around 18, 17K. And if we look at the last halving cycle, we had crossed 10K or so from a bottom of what, 3K, like 3,100. So typically we do sort of front run it, and things like the Litecoin halving result in an echo bubble, typically, like we saw in 2019 where we had that run to 14K, and even in 2015, the yearly open of 2015 to the yearly open of 2016, that was like an 80% gain. So perhaps we will front run it. So
Yeah, it's like I'm not trying to be like overly nuanced where the bottom is. I mean, I'm
yeah,
kind of like you, where it's like time based,
yeah.
and
I mean,
just
a good
oh,
a good perspective that we've been saying on this space is that people now are more bearish than GCR was this time last year, right?
love.
And he's getting a bit bullish now, but yet the same people that were extremely bullish when he got bearish at the top, there's a little bit of a narrative there. So
No, for sure. And like if we
yeah,
start going sideways for a few months, it doesn't
yeah,
make
and
sense to get
and
more bearish. It makes sense to be bullish.
and the current sentiment, right, and like certain tweets that have been put out, those aren't things that you see at tops, right? You don't see people talking about, withdraw all your stable coins into fiat and put into your bank account, right? So,
Yeah,
and
no.
even the exchange tail risk, right? So, if all the big exchanges go down, like, where exactly are we going to get like the price feed from? Are we going to trade BTC on Fidelity? Because it's definitely not going to be on like these first party applications, right? Like these direct swaps, because they get their price from somewhere. There always has to be some sort of like price oracle. We would essentially wake up and see BTC at what, $200, $300. It would set us back to the Stone Age. So I think the current narrative of certain BTC enthusiasts wanting all centralized exchanges to go down. It's pretty distasteful, and
Agree.
yeah. So let's
I
move
don't
on
see
from
any
that.
problem. No, I don't see
Yeah,
any problem rooting for the whole space. But yeah, thanks
yeah,
for having me on. It's
yeah. No
steak
problem.
night. I'm gonna keep listening, keep
No
talking.
problem. No problem. Yeah. So we got about like 10 minutes left, man. We've been running this space for about 2 hours, and yeah, we're gonna wrap things up in the next 10 minutes. Avid, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to round back, not to beat on the dead horse, but on this whole 51% of tech thing. I was trying to talk with Naka about this earlier and how, ridiculous it is. We talked about, hash rate and what you could do with a double spend. Here's the other part of the equation that makes zero sense. The amount of mining hardware and facilities you'd have to have control over or own or build to be able to pull off something like that is in the hundreds, if not trillions of dollars, if the hundreds of billions or trillions of dollars. And so if all you could do was double spend your own Bitcoin and you had to invest all this money into a network, right? You couldn't necessarily just rent GPUs because they're not as efficient as ASICs. It makes zero sense. And so that's what's great about Bitcoin is the game theory around it, right? And so you're incentivized to be a good actor on the network. And this is another thing that differentiates Bitcoin from other things. It's like Bitcoin has the reason he was asking, like, why is the halving there? Well, it's because early on in the network, they needed to, as Dee said, bootstrap, or maybe it's Tomer, bootstrap the network. So early on when there wasn't a lot of miners, the reward was high because there was no value really there. And over time, as the value goes up in purchasing power, it kind of balances with the halving and the other stuff. But I just wanted to point out that if you purchased $1 trillion in mining rigs and set up, hundreds of acres of facilities and purchased all the electricity to pull this off, why would you use that against yourself and against your own network? It makes zero sense. You would just use that and be a good actor and make tons of money. Like, it doesn't make sense to try and double spend your own stuff and then make all your miners worthless. It's
Good points.
stupid.
Good points, brother. Good points. Next up, we have Miss Sharon. Miss Sharon, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I want to say hello to D++, my friend up in Austin. You guys were talking a little bit earlier. Some people were questioning the various utilities of Bitcoin. And I just wanted, just like D++, I just wanted to say I just rolled in from buying groceries in the grocery store here in El Salvador. Earlier today, I received quite a bit of money as a donation from a friend in the U.S., thousands of dollars. That was on main chain, not Lightning, in order to buy equipment for an auto mechanics vocational program for schools here. I pay for taxis, pretty much buy everything I need to live here in El Salvador. So that's just a few examples between having the options of transferring large sums of money safely, and then also in a zap, literally. Every transaction goes through, even with large retailers here that are still on the learning curve, goes through in seconds before I can put my phone away.
Thank you so much. All right, next up, we have Nana Emo Trader. How are you doing today, my man? Thank you for being up here.
Yeah, Nanamo Trader, thank you. Big hello from Vancouver Island in Canada. Thanks, guys, for hosting this. I asked this question. I am a big fan of Bitcoin. I'm just trying to wrap my head around something I hope you guys can help me with. It's the first time since the inception of Bitcoin that we've actually really seen interest rates change and start running up. And I'm wondering, is that something that it's going to potentially be a headwind for Bitcoin? Like just the fact that it's been quite speculative from that standpoint with the Fed easing. I'd just be curious what your thoughts are on that.
From that rate, just look at price. If you're talking about monetary value, just look at price. You can even compare to 2018 when they started raising rates to about 3%, and now we're going towards 5%. So what the price action has told you is that typically doesn't tend to do well, and it's all one big trade. NASDAQ and SPX trend down. BTC does not react opposite. It follows the same trajectory. So hope that answers your question. Next up, we have Cross, and then I'm going to have to wrap it up, guys. It's been about 2 hours.
Thanks, man. Yeah, great space, guys. I wanted to say something back to your guys' point that you like about yourselves, what you do as a way of making a living or hobby, which is trading. And I absolutely have no judgment on that. Like, there's nothing wrong with trading per se. But yeah, I just wanted to give you kind of a food for thought. Like, I don't know, Vestige, I don't know why you're laughing here. I was just gonna say, I'm not a word of advice. I don't want to sound like I'm trying to be superior in any way, but you should maybe just consider that, regardless of what someone does to earn a living, if you do that, if you're a good trader, that's great. If you're an engineer, that's great too. If you're a doctor, whatever, we still all have the question of what are we going to store our value in long term. So I think your point is well taken earlier, that we're just traders, we just want to make money, but that doesn't really get you out of the problem of you ideally wanting to consider what your profits will ultimately be held in, right? So maybe you want to look at gold or just the S&P, or maybe some Bitcoin too. I just would be very careful to long-term store it in any of these altcoins, because pretty much all of them, except for 3, I think I heard a stat today, out of approximately 20,000 altcoins, only 3, I have to go verify this, but it sounds like apparently only 3 of them have ever reached again an all-time high in Bitcoin terms. So basically, long-term, everything is trending to zero in Bitcoin terms. So just consider it as your kind of North Star, and you can make money day to day however you want, as long as you're not scamming anybody. I think, and the other thing, like I want to add to that, a lot of my friends in the Bitcoin theorist maximalist space. Oh, hold on. Just it's kind of annoying how much they criticize traders. I think it's just kind of a waste of time. Like we shouldn't judge people by what they do for a living, as long as people are honest, right? So that's all I had to say, man.
Perfect.
Sorry if I'm rambling. I don't know.
Yeah. It's all good, man. It's all good. We're here to have an open discussion. Thank you, guys. Thank you for the bottom of my heart. Thank you for coming on the space. For the listeners who came up, thank you, Vestige, D+, Avid, Widow, Cross, Sharon, Mr. Trader. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm just going to call you Trader. And Tomer, I know we had our boy Payne here. Thank you guys so much. If you want to participate in more of these crypto-specific spaces, be sure to follow Because Bitcoin. I'll be hosting all of my crypto-specific spaces through the Because Bitcoin Twitter page. And for those of you listening to our YouTube replay, thank you guys so much. Feel free to leave any comments. Feel free to tell me, how annoying my voice is. Feel free to tell me, Wabi, alts are going to zero. You're stupid. That's perfectly fine. I hope you have a good breakfast the next day. I hope you feel good. But anyways, enough joking around, guys. The space was amazing. We had a huge turnout. Thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to all of our speakers. And the link to our Discord is up on the Nest. We have over 800 members. I chill there sometimes on the voice chat. So we have our boy Premise here and some of our Chads. Nicholas, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. And Mr. Producer, of course, my main man. That's going to be it for me. I'll see you guys on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And have fun. Have a fun weekend. Peace out.
The trading current is just math. It's just math. It has a 95.45% hit rate when we deviate outside of CP2 and CN2. All you had to do is recognize that 95% of the time when we get over here, under this blue line, we get some sort of mean reversion. So let's just assume you long right here. 95 out of 100 times, when I buy this, I'm going to get some sort of bounce. It's just math. Look what would have happened as we move up. Look at the bounce that came after. And now look where we are. If you had just blindly followed the current, you take all emotions out of it, and you say, I'm going to trust the statisticians. You would have bought Dow Jones somewhere down here under 30,000. Depending on how you want to measure it from absolute top to bottom, 20% move. We also have multi-time frame alerts. You don't even have to be at your computer on TradingView. You can ping your phone. Now, the current has some really awesome features, and I would urge you guys to join our Discord to get access to it. We give it away for free as a tool to the community. It's just math. There's really no need to overcomplicate things, not even in the slightest.